So we've seen communities of routing node operators grow organically in the last few years, one notable one being Plebnet. What role do you think Plebnet, maybe you can describe exactly how Plebnet works and what it is for listeners who aren't familiar, but what role do you think Plebnet will play on the network over time?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Plebnet is this community of folks. I think earlier in May was their sort of 1 year anniversary from when they started, and it's this community of node runners who are kind of doing it as a hobby, but are also building this educational resource and community. It's grown from, I think it was 8 to 10 people at the start to now there's over 6,000 people in their Telegram group. And it's remarkable to watch. I've had the pleasure of, kind of being a fly on the wall in a lot of their discussions and just working with them as we are building products and different things like that. And I love the fact that the community is just coming together and educating so many people on how to build a routing node. And I think at one point, 8 of the top 10 terminal web nodes were Plebnet nodes, which is just crazy when you think about it. These sort of hobbyists who've come onto the network and have been able to understand it extraordinarily well, teach a lot of people about it, and just continue, growing and building into this group of really, really strong node operators. So, I love Plebnet. I think what they're doing has had an immense impact on the Lightning Network overall, and the ability to have these quality routing nodes. In terms of the future, I think there's a lot of people who look at it and may dismiss it and say, oh, as we grow, these hobbyists won't have a place. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that the knowledge that these people that the Plebnet have built up is immense. Like when you talk to somebody who is running a node and has learned through Plebnet, their understanding of liquidity on Lightning and their understanding of the different elements of running a routing node is second to none. And so I think that this expertise that they've cultivated and the people who are learning all of this stuff have a role to play in the Lightning Network for a long time to come, whether it's running nodes for larger businesses, whether it's continuing to run their own nodes as part of the core routing network infrastructure. I'm really excited to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I mean it's a very cool idea. I do wonder as well, if the network grows in capacity, if 10x is in capacity, 100x is in capacity, does the need for capital then become a constraint on hobbyists? Like, if I've only got half a Bitcoin to my name, am I able to play a key role as a router on the network if the network capacity is 100,000 Bitcoin? I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, it's
today we're at 3,000. It's like you can most people can participate if they really want to, and it is very open to hobbyists today. But if we get Visa, if we get Stripe, if we get like major corporations dumping a lot of Bitcoin onto the network and trying to become hubs themselves, does that push some of the hobbyists to the edges of the network?
it's a fascinating question, and like I I'm not going to pretend like I have the answers to the future or predictions about this stuff, but I think there's a couple of ways it could play out. They have defined their position within the network graph already, right? And so they have unique connections, unique routing opportunities, and all that different stuff. And because of the way the Lightning Network works, where capital is reused, if you can reuse that capital at a higher rate, maybe it doesn't necessarily matter if you don't have, a large amount of capital on the node, depending on the size of payments and different things like that over time and how that evolves. Another thing that could play out is when these legacy businesses or whoever comes onto the Lightning Network and wants to run a node, I can't imagine a better, group or better person, better talent pool to pull from than the Plebnet folks in terms of understanding how to run a node, what best practices are, et cetera, et cetera. So, even if there's this future state where hobbyists maybe get pushed out because they don't have a lot of capital and they can't process the number of payments that bigger companies could. I think that they can play a role in educating and being a part of that and being talent that's associated with running those nodes because of the expertise that they've built up. But again, I don't know the way this plays out. I think that it's totally possible that people can stay around for a long time, even as the Lightning Network grows in capacity.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question of what happens when you have people who maybe know more about the network but don't quite have all the resources of larger players. And I wonder, there was a possibility that was raised on a previous episode of what if it's possible for someone with a lot of money to deploy their capital and kind of back a node operator who is in Plebnet, who does have a really, really good understanding of how the network works and how to route efficiently. Is that a realistic scenario where you could have both come true, where a lot of capital does come onto the network on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have a lot of the Plebnet folks who really understand the network still can play a key role because they are the ones who put that capital to work through their own node? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Renee, right, who mentioned that possibility. It's not something that I've thought about in depth really, but I think it could, be a potential path forward. I think that people underestimate the level of expertise that has been built up within Plebnet and the understanding that they have of how to run a profitable routing node, and how to reduce operational overhead to do so, and all that different stuff. So the idea of a world where you have these capital allocators who are potentially betting on node operators like they would bet on a business or something like that is fascinating, interesting to me, and I think that that could be a possibility. I'm not sure how they would facilitate these arrangements. I'm sure it would be like contractual and different things like that. But yeah, I mean, I could see a world where like that, if Lightning grows the way that we think it's going to, and there is this possibility of earning some yield, some return on Bitcoin within a quality high output routing node.
Yeah. What do you think is? Do you think it's realistic for people in Plebnet, in this kind of community of really knowledgeable routing operators, to earn full-time incomes as routing node operators? Is that a realistic outcome? Maybe not today, but in the future.
Great question. I mean, I think it depends a little bit on the price of Bitcoin and the price of living and inflation and all of that different stuff, and amount of capital that you can put on the node and different things like that. I don't know of anyone within Plebnet who's doing this as a full-time gig and supporting themselves with the income that they're generating. But I do know many people who are operating on profitable routing node and who are using it as sort of a side hustle to add to their Bitcoin stack. And so I think for the foreseeable future, that's where things will be. You'll have people who are doing this profitably. They're adding to their Bitcoin stack. They're contributing to the growth of the Lightning Network by being a really high quality routing node. But in the future, with Bitcoin price going up, and different things like that, Lightning Network growth, the increasing acceleration of payments, reuse of capital, growth of routing fees as you sort of price in the quality of routing nodes. It's not something that I would necessarily rule out. I think it's just probably far off.